All right, so this is your RN. I'm here today with Miss Regan Bean. She's a cosmetology instructor for Southern Tech. Regan, it's good to have you today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, yes. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How long you been at Southern Tech? How long have you been a cosmetology instructor? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I literally just graduated from cosmetology instructor school in May. And
Nice.
I didn't go back into cosmetology until I was like 40 something.
Okay.
I went to cosmetology school in my like early 20s, finished, and had absolutely no idea how hard it was to get started
Okay.
as basically an artist. You know, you're either booth rent or you can go to Sport Clips or a chain or Supercuts and
Mm-hmm.
work and get an hourly. And my parents did not want me to become a cosmetologist.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Okay.
said, you're not doing that. So I did it anyway. And then I realized like how hard it was to
Mm-hmm.
make it. And I was like, well, I need to please my dad and do what my dad asked. Because he was like, you're going to a 4-year college, blah, 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 blah. So I did. And I went back and then I taught just public school for about 8 years.
Okay.
And started cutting hair at night to make extra money because school teachers don't make any money
No, they
either.
don't.
And I met a guy and he was like, why don't you teach cosmetology? And I was like, oh, they don't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
Because all I'd ever seen was newspaper ads for Paul Mitchell. And it's like, we pay our Cosmo instructors up to $19 an hour. And I'm like, well, you make more than that cutting hair.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, I work at a career tech and we pay better than that. You should do that. So I did. And then I just graduated in May. And this was the first opening that I saw, other than there was one opening at Indian Capital.
Mm-hmm.
You know where that one is? It's like,
I don't. Indian Capital. Okay.
almost to Arkansas. Like, it
Oh,
is
okay.
so far eastern Oklahoma.
Yeah, I haven't been that way. So, okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And they were debating on whether or not to do like a cosmetology degree that
Mm-hmm.
year or electrical engineering, and they went with engineering.
Okay.
So then my cousin called me and she was like, we have an opening in Ardmore. And I jumped on it and they liked me and I got my job. So this is my first year
Nice.
doing this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So you were in a public school system for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you seen any comparisons to what you did for public schools versus working for career tech?
I think they're happier to be here.
Okay.
They want to earn this certificate. So
Okay.
this means more to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think our standards are too low in public schools and in general, really. Like, I think we could raise the bar for our students across the board.
Okay.
I think we do a good job of that here. I really do. I think career tech, because it kind of sits by itself, is a unique thing.
Yes.
And we're allowed to do some things that maybe they can't do in public schools.
Right.
So that's pretty cool, being able to say, like, no, I want you to get a 75 on this haircut before I let you do it on a person.
Right.
Like, other places, it's just like, no, you paid for this, so you can go do whatever.
True.
Yeah. So
True.
that's been kind of cool. But as far as comparisons to public school, this doesn't compare at all. Like,
Okay.
we have rules here.
Yeah, we
and
do.
Most public schools anymore is just kind of a free-for-all,
Yeah.
sadly. But
It is.
it really is.
It is. I don't know if this is just like, public schools, you're forced to take subjects that you may or may not be interested in. Maybe you look forward towards a science class, but you don't really care for geography. Right?
Right.
But here, I feel like if you're a part of a program, you want to be a part of that program. Like,
Right.
you have a strong desire to succeed.
Yes.
I don't know if you feel that way, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're very competitive as far as they want. I don't know if you feel that in the nursing department, but over here they're pretty competitive. So it's like, if we're going to show you a haircut, all of them are looking at each other like, I'm going to do it the best,
I
you
like
know?
that.
And so
I like
that's,
that.
that's cool because like you were saying, like if they're forced to be in my science class, one of them cares, maybe.
Right.
That one's already decided they're going to college. This is important. I gotta, whatever reason, they had to please their parents. They're just doing it for them, whatever. But the majority of them are forced to be there. Here, they want to be here. They're not going to like every assignment.
Of course not.
But they
Of
do want to
course.
be here. So,
Yeah.
and they feel proud about it. I think that's pretty cool too. Like,
Yeah.
I think they're really proud to be here, and I love that.
I love that too. Just having a sense of pride in something makes you strive for that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You have a goal that you want to achieve. And I'm sure, I don't know what the best comparison is of what your students, maybe yourself even, maybe there's a person or people they look up to, but I'm sure they have a goal in mind of what they want maybe their shop to look like. Maybe they want their clientele to be a certain way. But I'm sure like they have those aspirations that keep them going within the classroom, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if you've had those conversations or not,
Yeah,
but yeah.
we have like a super strict dress code and hair and like the whole nine. They have to wear the exact same thing every day. Their hair has to be down, like they can't look like I do today, which is wrong.
Can't see you, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We can't see you.
It is. I feel bad because
Yeah.
there's days I'm like, we don't allow you to wear a messy bun,
Right.
you know. So why can I? And I just tell them I leave really early in the morning to get here.
Right.
But we are trying to set them up for success because we're like, you can't go to your job looking bad and expect people to want to come to you for hair. I mean, maybe 20 years in, when you're 40 something, they'll come to you because they know you're good. But starting out, what you put out there, they see and they're going to be attracted to it. So
Yeah.
they do a good job of that, of setting them up for success, I feel like here.
So, you know, I'm a nurse, and I know for me, one of the best things as a nurse, like I look forward to or a goal is in a hospital setting, especially like I'm taking care of a patient for a few days, and it's the best thing for me to see them actually get healthy and be on their way to a better way of living. So what is like the primary goal, would you say, with a person being a cosmetologist? Like what is their primary goal? Like what, you know what I'm saying? Like what would drive them?
For the school specifically is to pass state boards.
Gotcha.
Which is completely different than doing it in real life. Like, sadly, there's a lot of stuff on state boards that I don't know that I've ever really encountered. Certain skin diseases, certain, hair disorders, things like that we have to teach them in order to pass boards. There's a big biological component to that. And then once you take that test, you don't have as much interaction with it. It's literally like you have an infectious disease or it looks like an open wound, so we can't touch it, and then that's it. You just move on to the next client. And that's a huge part of what we focus on here because that's a huge part of the test. So their goal here really is to pass state board. I wish that could be about a third of what we do and then really specialize in what they're going to get to do outside of here, because
Interesting.
I think like hair cutting is like 100. Well, I have it right here. We only spend 120 hours in hair cutting, and then mani and pedi 75 hours. So these people that are coming to cosmetology school that want to specialize in nails, they're only going to get 75 hours of that. And that's a huge bummer for them. Out of 1,500 or 1,000 hours, whichever course they're in, 75 is nails. Like, that's a bummer. And that's because such a huge portion is dedicated to, like, we got to get you ready to pass this test. And so that's, I think, kind of our goal. I think our pass rates haven't been great in the past. So we really want them to not be afraid to take those tests, because it does count.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And so that's their primary goal here. I would like it to be, I'm going to get out of here, I'm going to be successful. Right. I heard a statistic the other day, and Gordon Miller, who was over Hairbrained, he's like the Hairbrained podcast person.
Okay.
And he said 80% of cosmetologists, licensed cosmetologists, drop out of the profession in the first 3 years.
It's quite a large percentage there.
It's huge.
That is
It's huge.
huge.
And
Okay.
I was one of them, because you
Gotcha.
don't realize like how hard it is to recruit clientele, to stay with it, to stand on your feet from noon till night when you're just beginning. You know, if
Right.
you're at even a chain, 40 hours a week, standing up, working, physically is really hard. So I'd like to see those numbers shift to
Oh, for sure.
a little more longevity and a little more preparedness for that, rather than just, we're going to prepare you for the test.
So 80%, is it just the combining factors of everything that you just said, or is there kind of more to it? Because 80 is high. It's high. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, because nursing's pretty high as well. There's a high dropout rate for nursing. But I'm just sitting here thinking, like, okay, I would think students or people come in will have a general idea of what the job is going to entail, whether they're working for themselves independently or they're working with a retail giant, whatever. I would think they have a general understanding of maybe sticking it out. But what is it? Is it just unrealistic expectations? Is it just harder than what they originally thought? What do you think?
I think it's a lot of those things. I think it's unrealistic expectations for sure, because a lot of people in my class, at least this year, and I think a lot of Cosmos in general, are, young.
Gotcha.
And so this being their very first career, and all you see on TV or TikTok or any of the social media, it's instant.
Yes.
It's, I'm going to color this person's hair. Bam, here's the result. It's perfect. It's beautiful. I charge them $500. They're gone. Here's my next client. And in reality, you have to hustle, or be prepared for a very physical job that doesn't really pay all that great, honestly. I mean, I love the chain places. I love them. Sport Clips was absolutely one of the greatest jobs I've ever had, ever. But most of them don't pay as well as Sport Clips. Most of them don't pay too great. And they're working weekends, and they're working nights, and they have a friend that works for Amazon, and then they're like, well, you know what, I may do that for a little bit, and then they'll have better benefits or better this, or and so I think it's a lot of it. I think for them to go out and venture out on their own right out of cosmetology school, that should be a safer venue than it is, and it's not. The safest, I feel like, is for them to go to a chain. A lot of them don't want to. They feel like it's the McDonald's of hair, right? I didn't want to. I was ashamed at first. Like, I didn't want to tell people I worked at one of those places.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is I didn't have parents or a support system that was going to help me pay booth rent and help me pay my rent while I gathered a clientele.
Right.
Like, that's expensive. I would have had to have somebody to live with, paying my bills, and then helping me to pay somebody for a spot in their salon. Then I got to recruit. Then I got to get people in the door.
Right.
And that in itself takes about 5 years. I did not have that support system. So I went to the chains, and it was successful for me. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was fun. But there was an element of like, I don't really know if I want to tell people like I work here. Or, you just kind of feel like it's the McDonald's of hair, and you shouldn't, because they're offering you an amazing, amazing opportunity. You get to do what you love, and they're going to recruit people for you. That's amazing.
Right.
But you're not this celebrity hairstylist. You're not this posh, like, gorgeous salon. You're at a chain. And so I think a lot of people don't want to do that. And maybe their trust fund runs out. Mom and dad are like, we're tired of you living with us and paying, for your booth rent at the same time. And so, time to get on with it. But I think if we reformat what we teach them in the time that we have them here, because they're not dumb. There's not one student in my class that can't learn state board in a third amount of the time and learn how to get out of here and do fantastic hair or nails. I haven't met that kid yet, haven't met
Right.
that student yet that wasn't capable of doing it. So I would like to see, right now, 2 companies dominate our curriculum, and it's Milady and Pivot Point.
Okay.
And our tests are based on, mainly Oklahoma's is based on Milady formatting, basically. It's not exactly like Milady, but it's really similar.
Right.
And so it's been kind of the same format since cosmetology school started. Since they started saying, we got to regulate this. There's too many people out there hooking people's heads up to electrodes. And it hasn't really changed all that much. And I think it's time it needs to change, honestly.
Interesting.
But I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
What are some of the reasons they don't stay in nursing? Is it the physicality of the job, or
that's a good
the
question.
pay, or
So I'm gonna try not to talk for too long because it's something I'm very passionate about. A lot of reasons is because, number one, I feel like there's unrealistic expectations. I will say that there's a lot of older generation of nurses that are leaving the field, especially Gen X, especially, and then of course you have millennials and Gen Z that are coming into the workforce. But I feel like millennials and Gen Z are more influenced by social media influencers and also things like Grey's Anatomy. TV shows have kind of given unrealistic expectations. I feel like the field has become kind of glamorized to an extent, based upon the very few within nursing that actually make money. Because overall, the field is severely lacking in terms of competitive pay, especially it varies by state by state. So that's one big factor. And two, the work is extremely difficult. So whether you are working in a nursing home, whether you're working in an emergency department, whether you're working in med surg, it doesn't matter. The work is taxing. The nurse to patient ratio is normally high, and that itself causes a lot of burnout. There's actually not a lot of support, I feel like, within healthcare. Even from management, you can express your frustrations with how difficult patient care is, or you feel like the numbers are unsafe. But those can be maybe contribute to also maybe there's not enough unionizing in nursing as well, but that's a whole nother subject. But I feel like those factors combined contribute to the quick burnout in nursing. We just, for example, I work in short-term health, and we have CNA classes that are constantly full. But the turnover rate is so high that we don't even have to market the class because the turnover rate is just so high. So quickly as they come in, they're leaving.
drop.
Yeah, and industries and homes are sending more people. They come, they go. It's just a constant shuffle. It's just a constant shuffle. That's something that I would like to see changed, especially in the next few years, especially the way that technology is going, the way AI is increasing, but also people themselves, I feel like, are not getting healthier. Like people are actually becoming more sick. So, and just me trying to look at the big picture, I feel like we need to get ahead of competitive rates in terms of patient to nurse ratios and focus on retaining nurses within the field because there's challenges that are coming that we're not going to be prepared for if we don't get ahead of. So I know that may be a lot, but that's how I feel.
No, I like to hear that because you always see the ads, and it's like travel nurse, and it's a ridiculous amount of money, and you think, how many nurses are making travel nurse pay? Could you sustain yourself on that? Like, you have to live somewhere else, you have to work weird hours, you have to, and then you think, like, what is it really? Like you said, like, what support do you have when you are burned out and you are the only nurse on that floor and the patient has a list of meds that's that long and there's 25 more of them just like it?
It's a lot. And to add to that, so during the pandemic era, also, we had government issued money that was going to state hospitals and things like that. And they were paying travel nurses rates that have never been seen, we may not ever see again. And it's just because there was such a dire need, like they was like, okay, we need workers during this pandemic, so we're going to pay these outrageous rates. And so some people coming into healthcare have been influenced by some of those rates, and those rates were unsustainable. Like, that money's gone. That COVID relief money, that money's gone. That's not coming back anytime soon. And these travel agencies, they know that as well. And so you got people chasing after kind of like a pipe dream in that aspect. Travel nursing is difficult. Just from working with travel nurses, I have talked to many travel nurses, and it's not easy. And especially if you add other factors like duplicating expenses. So they're traveling to Oregon, but yet they have a house in Texas, and they still have to cover those expenses. Plus, depending on their stipend, if they even get a stipend. So it's a lot, and it's complex. There's very, very few individuals that can actually make it work. Those individuals are more so either, maybe they have a stay-at-home parent that's taking care of the kids, or maybe they're completely single. But there's just very limited factors that can actually make that sustainable,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Right.
But otherwise, your nursing homes, your hospitals, they're just paying at a flat
Right.
rate, and you get your whatever benefits package, if there's a benefits package.
Right.
Some places there is no benefit package. You just show up to work and you're there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. It sounds a lot, the travel nursing sounds a lot like the kind of golden goose
It is.
for hair as well. Like
Interesting.
you finally get this one stylist that has fought through those first 5 years and built their books and had enough support and has the personality to just keep at it and not quit, and then you've got yourself a bona fide stylist. And I feel like that's kind of the what is it, the goose that laid the golden egg?
Yeah.
Like you find that one travel nurse, it's like, oh, I made $250,000 last year and I'm an RN, and you're like, oh, that's amazing, how do I do that? And it's like, it's a miracle.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I've seen people brag about how much they've made in the past year, making over six figures, and I'm just like, it's just not sustainable.
Right.
It's just not. I mean, you'll get tired of the travel. You'll get tired of, working with different coworkers. A lot of times you go travel nurses and they're not liked by their peers because they know they're making twice as much, maybe 3 times as much as they are, and they're doing the same work. But anyway, just all those factors are just unsustainable.
Right.
And people are like, I can do that. I'm like, you think you can, but can you really? So
I feel like both industries, and maybe all career industries that are at technology centers, we need a little more help in the mental health
for sure
arena.
Yeah.
Because I know for stylists especially, there's some really great hairdressers here, or not just here, everywhere, anywhere I've been, which is really here and where I got my master's. That was really when I started looking at the student factor of it. When I was a student, I was young and I wasn't analyzing that aspect of it really, but going back as an adult, like an older adult, you're going, what could we change? What could we make better? What you can kind of see, it's like having kids. You can kind of see where they're going to make the bad decision there. And you look, maybe bad's not the right word. They're going to make an alternative choice that maybe, but looking at the students that I've seen when I was going through my master program, and these students here, some of them have just anxiety, just generalized anxiety disorder, or just some kind. And with an industry like cosmetology, your work is on display. And I feel like it's that way with nursing as well, because some other nurse are going to come by and be like, you didn't wrap that right, or you didn't do, and it's just a very outward sort of work. Welding, same thing. Any of these kind of machiney things, it's like you can see their work and they're so sensitive about it. And I feel like if they do, the resiliency factor isn't so much there for us anymore. Like, I don't know what's happened, but there's not a lot of resiliency. And I feel like a lot of that is just based in like maybe their personality type, or their personality type combined with the fact that they may have some kind of just anxiety. And then it's like, oh, they just quit. And it's like, oh, you could be like, I have one student and I talked her out of dropping the program because she really was struggling with one aspect. And there's so many different aspects.
Right.
And it was one aspect. And she's like, I just have gone home every night this week and begged my parents to let me quit, and they won't let me quit until May. And I'm like, well, then you've got a year out of the way and you only have 1 year left.
Right.
Don't do that. And And finally, when she finally got it, I'm like, are you so glad you didn't quit? She's like, I'm so glad I didn't quit. This is fun. And I'm like, yes, it should be. But I think we really could benefit with, instead of doing the kind of standard static, like get to know you first day, really doing something like the 5 voices assessment, like
Yeah.
our superintendents
Yeah.
had us do.
Right.
So they get to know themselves. Like, oh, I'm a little more reserved. I'm a little more introverted. So that they can apply that when things get hard, like you said, during COVID, or things that may not be very easy for a nurse or a hairdresser with anxiety troubles. Like, okay, so you're a little introverted. You're going to need some help marketing yourself. You're going to need some help in this, that, or the other area, rather than just be one of those 80% that's like, yeah, I'm done. This whole thing goes down the tubes. Like, that's a lot of creativity to throw away. And I hate to see anybody do that ever. And I don't want to see it. Like, if I could change any of that, I would. And I'm grateful that we have mental health care here.
Yeah.
Because I think that's amazing that we have a counselor. I don't know
I agree.
many other career techs that do.
Not that I'm aware of. I did want to piggyback off your resiliency point, because I was going to touch on that
Sorry,
too.
yeah.
I have theories. I don't have data in front of me. I have theories on why resiliency is as low as it is.
I want to hear your theories.
Just my personal theories.
Okay.
I think because, so we'll look at it backwards from a career tech perspective. So, students come here, and as a whole, we can recognize as instructors, there's a lack of resiliency that's there. And obviously, resiliency is something that's built up over time. And so, you would think those tools would have been established before they come here. But what it is you have to play from behind.
Right.
You're trying to teach them skills and to persevere, right? Teach them perseverance. And they're not accustomed to that. I think what it is, if I had a chart, so to speak, if you would gauge on the common human being in today's society. So if you had like a social aspect in terms of, you can put that like social media, social gatherings, social events, like that bar would be extremely high, right? That bar would be extremely high. But if you would take things like, other aspects of the human being that probably are lacking, that is the mental aspect in terms of how to deal with problems. Because right now, what it is, people don't know how to deal with hard times. They expect that life is going to be easy and comfortable, when it's really the opposite. I mean, life is hard.
It's 100%.
It's hard, and you do what you can to ease the path of life.
Right.
So the mental aspect is hard, and then you get people that neglect like their physical aspect. And what I mean by that is, what you drink, what do you eat, how's your physical activity. Those things contribute to your mental health as well, but that's being seriously neglected. And the last aspect, which I know people will kind of debate on, is also the spiritual aspect. All human beings, one point or another, are spiritual in one way, form, or the other. And so when you neglect the spiritual aspect, if you neglect the physical aspect, but yet you pay a lot of attention to the social aspect, well, you're going to be lacking in all the other areas. What it is, you have to be good or at least somewhat average or good in the other categories that can also help build that resiliency. So that's just my theory, my 2 cents. I don't have a graph or anything like that. It's just my observation and listening to different people, different experts. It's just, I think we neglect a lot of areas as human beings, and that contributes to the lack of resiliency. Yeah. Because like for example, you're having a hard day, right? Some people will go, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go exercise to help relieve stress. It lowers cortisol levels, increases dopamine levels. You have that feel-good feeling. Other people, they'll pray, or they'll meditate, or they have whatever form of spirituality that they have, and that actually calms them down too. And so as time goes on, as they're dealing with hard times, they have something they can consistently go to, and they're also building that form of resiliency, and they can deal with hard times. They have more confidence going into dealing with hard times. So, but anyway.
Right. No, I completely agree. Yeah. I completely agree. And I think teachers as a whole, and I've done it because I've taught elementary school, I've taught middle school, and then when I got to high school, I realized like everything we tell them is untrue. Like, oh, if you don't learn your multiplication tables, you won't go to 4th grade. Well, guess what? You go to 4th grade.
Yeah.
You go to 4th
Yeah,
grade, and then you go to 5th grade,
yeah.
and then you go to 6th grade. And then all of a sudden we've got high schoolers on a 3rd grade reading level, and we do, because we have eliminated a lot of the consequences, a lot of the resiliency, a lot of that stuff has just gone away in public schools. We have not said there's any redirection, or, you know, they're supposed to get some remediation and some help, and those are usually pull-out classes that last 30 to 40 minutes, maybe once a week. It's supposed to be every day, but that's, you know, so our public schools, we haven't taught resiliency at all. We just keep pushing them along, right? We just want those daily average attendance dollars and just push them along, because that's what we have to do. And I've been guilty of it because I worked in the public schools.
Right.
Like, that's the job. You teach to that level, and you try to differentiate as best you can in a group of 8th graders with 3rd and 4th grade reading levels without dumbing it all the way down or bringing it too high. And so we had that conversation in here, kind of our first day. I said, this is going to have to rely on a lot of skills that you guys haven't worked yet, or in a while, or maybe ever, because there's, you know, you might not do it very well the first time. And as humans, we like to do things well the first time. We like to be good at stuff, and we don't like to not be good at stuff. And when we're not, we don't, like you said, that the social aspect's there, the, you know, physical aspect may be there, but we might be lacking so much in being able to just sit still and go, wait, why does this not make sense to me? You know, and be able to figure and sit through it and work through it, and not say to myself, I'm a terrible hairdresser, I'm never going to be good at this, I should quit now. Instead of like, oh, I'm just not getting this 45-degree haircut, which is hard for everybody the first time they do it, you know? But that's just not kind of their typical go-to. And I'd like to see some more like mindfulness and resiliency training in school.
Mindfulness, that would go a long way.
Yeah, because then by the time they get here, they would realize like it's a skill. It's not, hey, I tell you and you do it perfectly. It's, you know, I'm gonna coach you through it with all the stuff I know. Like, I will tell you everything I know. And there's so much that I don't, that you're going to have to keep seeking on your own. But I'm going to help you get there. But you know, it's a daily practice, just like a spiritual practice.
It is.
So that's one thing that I've noticed.
Yes. Regan, I would love to keep talking.
All right,
I would love to keep talking. Our time is coming to an end. So for people who don't know, you know, how can they apply to the cosmetology program? What's the best way for them to apply?
They can email me at rbeen@sotech.edu or org. I can't remember.
Edu.
And I'm like, I think I have 2 or 3 emails here. And then they can also call Southern Tech if they're not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a few career techs that allow cosmetology. They also have some private schools as well, but most states have state-funded cosmetology schools, and I highly, highly recommend them. There's many a benefit for another podcast of going to a state-supported school. So,
all right,
glad to be here. Thank
you.
You.
Regan, thank you for your time. I appreciate
it.
you.
That was fun getting into it.
Yes. All right. Later, guys.
Just a reminder, if you like any of the content, please like, comment, subscribe. Your comments and everything means a lot. God bless.